The doorbell rang at 7:42 p.m., soft but deliberate. Cutting through the quiet like a held breath finally released. Emily Carter stopped mid-step in her living room. The TV was on, but she hadn't been watching it. The house felt unusually still, the kind of silence that makes even familiar walls feel alert. Daniel wasn't home yet. He was late again, and she had already told herself not to read into it. The bell rang once more. Emily's heart tightened. No one visited unannounced on a weekday evening. She moved toward the door, every step slow but steady, unaware that her life was about to shift in a way she could never reverse. When she opened the door, the porch light revealed a woman standing there alone. She looked calm, but her eyes told another story, one of hesitation, courage, and something unresolved. "Hi," the woman said quietly. "I'm Claire." The name landed hard. Emily didn't gasp. She didn't step back. She simply stood there, memories rushing forward, an old photo Daniel once forgot to hide. A name he never explained. A pause in his voice when the past came too close. Claire spoke again. "I know this is unexpected." Emily studied her face. She looked ordinary, human, not the villain Emily had imagined in her darker moments. Just a woman carrying something heavy. After a brief pause, Emily stepped aside. "Come in," she said. The words surprised them both. Claire entered slowly, as if unsure she was welcome. Emily closed the door behind her, the sound final but calm. The house didn't change, but Emily felt like she had crossed an invisible line. They sat across from each other in the living room. No tea, no small talk. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second pushing them closer to something unavoidable. "I didn't come to cause pain," Claire said. "I almost turned back twice." Emily nodded. "Most people do." Claire clasped her hands together. "I didn't know how else to do this. I didn't want to go behind your back." Emily appreciated that more than she expected. For years, Emily had felt a quiet distance growing in her marriage. Daniel was kind, dependable, and gentle, but there was a part of him she could never fully reach. Conversations stayed safe. Emotions stayed measured. Love was there, but something deeper always seemed just out of reach. "You know who I am?" Claire said. "Yes," Emily replied simply. Claire exhaled. "Then I won't pretend." She explained how she and Daniel had known each other years ago, before marriage, before life made its choices. How timing and fear had pulled them apart, not anger or betrayal. How they hadn't spoken in years, yet never truly closed that chapter. Emily listened without interrupting. She didn't feel anger rising. Instead, she felt clarity. "Did you come for him?" Emily asked. "No," Claire said quickly. "I came for the truth." The words settled deep. Emily stood and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet, lined with trees glowing under soft porch lights. This was her life, her home, her marriage. "Daniel doesn't know you're here," Emily said. "I know," Claire replied, "and I'm sorry for that." "Okay?" Emily turned back. "If you had stayed away, would the truth still exist?" Claire looked down. "Yes," Emily nodded. That was answer enough. The sound of tires crunching on gravel broke. The moment a car pulled into the driveway. Emily's chest tightened, but she didn't panic. She felt strangely ready. "That's him," she said. Claire stood, smoothing her jacket. "I can leave." "No," Emily said. "You came this far." The front door opened. Daniel stepped inside, loosening his coat. His usual tired smile already forming. "Hey." He stopped. His eyes moved from Emily to Claire, and the color drained from his face. Silence filled the room. "Claire," he said softly. Emily watched him carefully. There was shock, yes, but also recognition. And something like guilt mixed with relief. "I invited her in," Emily said, her voice calm. She knocked. I answered. Daniel swallowed and sat down heavily. No one raised their voice. No one accused. The moment didn't explode, it unfolded. Claire spoke first. "I didn't come to change your life. I came to stop being a secret." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "You shouldn't have carried that alone." Emily stepped closer. Neither should you. Daniel looked up at her. Years of unspoken words sat behind his eyes. I never crossed the line, he said. But I never let go either. Emily nodded. I felt that. The honesty was sharp but clean. It hurt, but it also healed. Daniel turned to Claire. I loved you once, he said gently. But I chose Emily. I just didn't fully accept what that choice required. Claire smiled sadly. That's all I needed to hear. She looked at Emily. You deserve a marriage without shadows. Emily held her gaze. And you deserve peace. Claire gathered her coat and moved toward the door. She paused once. Thank you for opening it. Emily nodded. I needed to. After Claire left, the house felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Just honest. Daniel and Emily sat together in the quiet. I was afraid to face this, Daniel admitted. I thought it would break us. Emily leaned back, exhaustion settling in. Ignoring it was already breaking us. Daniel reached for her hand, tentative but sincere. She didn't pull away. Outside, the night deepened. Inside, the truth finally had room to breathe. The moment Daniel stepped inside, something in the air shifted. He had expected an ordinary evening, cold hands, tired smile. And Emily, waiting with a small dinner or maybe just a cup of tea. Instead, he was met with a presence he hadn't anticipated. A quiet tension that made the familiar walls of his home feel different, almost alive. Claire stood near the couch, calm but alert, her eyes holding something he hadn't seen in years: truth, vulnerability, and maybe even a trace of old affection he hadn't fully acknowledged. Claire? His voice was low, cautious, almost like he was testing reality. He hadn't spoken her name in years, and now saying it aloud felt like reopening a locked door he thought had been sealed. Emily watched him closely, noticing the hesitation in his shoulders, the pause in his usually steady posture. She didn't feel anger or fear, only a strange mixture of curiosity and quiet determination. This was the moment she had prepared for in her mind countless times. I invited her in, Emily said calmly, stepping slightly closer to Daniel. She knocked. I answered. Her words were deliberate, measured, but soft, carrying no accusation, only honesty. Daniel blinked and looked between the two women, caught off guard by the composure in Emily's voice. He had expected confrontation, shock, or even anger, but not this calm acceptance that left him momentarily unmoored. Claire's eyes softened as she spoke. I didn't come to cause trouble. I came to bring truth. That's all. Her voice was steady, almost fragile, and yet it carried a quiet authority. Daniel sank into the couch, exhaling slowly, the weight of years of unspoken words pressing down on him. He hadn't realized how much he had carried alone, the unfinished chapters of his past waiting silently in corners of his mind. The room seemed to shrink as silence fell, thick and potent. Daniel's gaze softened as he looked at Claire, then at Emily, who had remained composed, observing every nuance. The contrast between the two women was stark, yet harmonious. Claire representing the past he hadn't fully left behind. Emily embodying the present he had chosen, yet never completely understood. I need to explain, Daniel said finally, his voice gentle, raw, and unpracticed. Years ago. Before Emily, before everything, Claire and I. We had something. I didn't finish it properly, not because I didn't care, but because life pulled us apart. I never spoke fully about it, not to anyone, not even myself sometimes. His words fell carefully, measured with regret and relief intertwined. Emily listened, letting him speak without interruption, letting the truth pour out naturally. Claire nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his. I waited too long to say anything, she admitted. And I carried it alone because I didn't want to hurt anyone. I wasn't sure if coming here was the right thing, but hiding it didn't feel right either. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the calm exterior, a vulnerability that only added to the weight of the moment. Daniel swallowed hard, then looked at Emily. I chose you, Emily. I married you, and I have loved you every day. But I never fully closed that chapter with Claire, and that That was my failure. Its words were an apology and a confession, but not a plea. They were a release of something he had held for too long. Emily felt the sting of reality, but it was tempered with relief. Pain shared was lighter, and honesty, when uncomfortable, brought a strange peace. She reached for Daniel's hand instinctively. The touch was gentle, not demanding, just grounding them both in the moment. "This isn't about the past," she said softly. "It's about what we do now." Her words held power not in anger, but in clarity, signaling a willingness to move forward with eyes wide open. Claire's gaze softened further. "That's why I came," she said quietly. "So you could have clarity, so the past wouldn't linger in shadows anymore. You both deserve honesty. You both deserve peace." There was no bitterness, no claim, no lingering hope to disrupt the life Daniel had built. Her presence, once a potential threat, became a catalyst for understanding and reconciliation. Daniel exhaled slowly, finally releasing the tension he hadn't realized he was holding. "I was afraid," he admitted. "I thought admitting it would break us, break everything we've built." His voice cracked slightly, not from weakness, but from the relief of finally unburdening years of concealed emotion. Emily leaned back slightly, resting her head against the couch cushion, her mind clearing as she absorbed the exchange. "Ignoring it was already breaking us," she said calmly. "Facing it might just save us." Her words were simple but profound, a reflection of maturity and understanding that only comes with navigating complex emotions. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the sounds of the night rustling leaves, distant traffic, the subtle rhythm of life continuing. Inside, the room was heavy with the past, yet illuminated by the possibility of renewal. The air felt different, charged not with tension, but with the weight of truth finally spoken and received. Claire moved toward the door, her steps measured, her expression a mixture of relief and resignation. "Thank you," she said quietly, glancing at Emily first, then Daniel. "For listening, for understanding, for letting me do this the right way." Her presence, brief but impactful, had brought closure, not disruption. Emily nodded, understanding more than words could convey. "You did the right thing," she said. There was no resentment in her voice, only acknowledgement. A recognition that maturity often required grace in moments that could have easily turned sour. As Claire exited, the door closing softly behind her, Emily and Daniel sat together in silence. No words were necessary. The room felt fuller, not from furniture or light, but from honesty and shared understanding. They didn't need to discuss every detail or dissect every feeling. The important part had happened. They had faced the truth together. Daniel reached for Emily's hand again, intertwining their fingers. "I was afraid that facing this would undo us," he said softly. "But I see now. It might actually strengthen us." Emily squeezed his hand in return. "Honesty always does," she said. Her voice carried warmth, reassurance, and a quiet promise that they could move forward, not unscathed, but unburdened. The night stretched outside, dark and calm, yet inside the house felt vibrant, alive with potential. The past had been acknowledged, the present accepted, and the future opened wide, waiting for them to step into it together. They stayed on the couch long after the door had closed, sharing silence that was no longer uncomfortable but comforting. Daniel rested his head slightly against Emily's shoulder, and she let him. No words were required. The simple act of being together, of letting the shared weight of truth settle between them, was enough. Through the open window, a gentle breeze carried the smell of falling leaves and distant rain. Inside, they didn't need grand gestures or dramatic confessions anymore. They had something stronger, understanding, honesty, and a choice to embrace the life they had built together without shadows lingering in the corners. Emily thought about the journey, the small decisions, the unspoken thoughts, the quiet fears, and realized that moments like these, moments of pure truth, were rare and precious. She glanced at Daniel, whose face was relaxed for the first time in months, and felt a surge of gratitude. Love wasn't perfect, but it was resilient. Daniel spoke again, softly, almost a whisper. "I'm glad you opened the door." Emily smiled, her heart light yet steady. So am I, she said. So am I. Outside, the night moved on. Inside, the house held them both, filled with honesty, trust, and the quiet, steady rhythm of hearts choosing each other once more. The door had been opened not to disrupt, but to heal. And in doing so, it had given them both a chance to start again together.